who want our podcast published.
Exactly. All right, so we should be broadcasting right about there. It goes. Hey, folks, how you doing? Welcome to the Geocaching Podcast. And we are just about ready to start, and we are recording because I usually forget. Actually, I haven't forgot to record in a long time. I've been, after 4 or 5 years of this, I'm thinking I'm starting to get the habit. But it wasn't in the beginning. Man, in the beginning, I would forget every frickin' week. So I actually have right on my show notes for GeoSnippets. I think I took them out of the ones for Geocaching Podcast, where it would literally say press record before starting. And I'd still mess it up.
Did you ever manage to say press record before starting?
I've been close. There have been times where it's like, insert name here. So,
press any key. Where's the any key? I can't see it.
Yes, exactly. Your full name, really?
Your password is incorrect.
Yes.
How did it know that?
Yeah. How does it? Yeah, really. How does it know? So, anyways, that's how that went. All right, folks. I think we are about ready, and so I'm going to press the little button up here. All right. Sit back, relax, get your favorite libation, your favorite snack. The Geocaching Podcast is coming at you right about now.
You want to know how to find it. Seek it out when they hide it. You know it's in the bag when it's an easy grab. But come on, take a chance now. Go, geocache. And if you need help, we're right there in a flash. If you got a question, just call in and ask. Uncover the stash. On the Geocaching Podcast. The Geocaching Podcast.
Welcome to the Geocaching Podcast, episode 501, recorded live on June 21st, 2017. I'm your host, Headhardhat with
Task 427 and
Info Ferret.
You can join our chat room and watch our live video stream, plus participate with us as we record this episode. All this and more can be found at www.geocachingpodcast.com/live. Be sure to contact us via our voicemail line at 630-31-VOICE. And also find us on Twitter at geocachingpodcast.com/Twitter and Facebook at geocachingpodcast.com/Facebook. This episode is sponsored by our good patrons of the Geocaching Podcast. To become a contributing patron, simply click on our patron logo or PayPal logo on our webpage to help keep our podcast going. From all of us at the Geocaching Podcast, we thank you. So, how's it going, gang?
Hot.
I was going to say, I looked at some of the things from Southwest in the United States, and when I see Death Valley going, damn, it's hot out. you know it is hot.
Yeah, we've been having afternoons in about the 105 to 109 range here. So I was driving home today, and my car was saying 109. I'm tired. I'm hot. Get me off the road.
I'm melting.
Not a problem here.
No, yeah, same here. I'm very, very pleased to say it. The best that we had, it actually went down into the upper 70s. It's muggy. I mean, we've got you can cut the air with a knife and see the water, but no, I'll take the 79 and muggy as opposed to 110, because I don't care if it's a dry heat or not. You go up in flames.
Yeah, once you get up above, in the mid 105 range and stuff, you're like, yeah. It's too hot to go
just
geocaching.
Hot. Yeah, it's just hot.
Well, we're supposed to have
my wife was talking about going to a specific park last weekend and stuff, and was like, you do realize it's going to be 105 out, right? It's like, yeah, scrap that idea.
Yeah.
We went to the movies instead.
There you go.
Well, take 50 off that, and you've got the high for today for us.
Oh, really? So, well, yeah, you're going into winter, though. I mean, it's...
Look... We've had the shortest day. We're heading back into summer.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Today's the solstice. That's right. It switches. Yes. The day starts getting shorter for us and longer for Sarah. So she'll get the bragging right. Yeah, here we go. She'll get the bragging rights pretty soon. But I'll tell you what, it's still not there. You're still midway.
Yeah,
But,
we've still got the worst bit to come.
It's funny because my wife Amy, we've been kind of looking around from different places that we might want to live, and there was a possibility with her master's degree in mediation that she might get a job. And we're like, well, where do we want to go? Do we want to be here still in North Carolina, which has all these stipulations, and you just the hoops and hoops of it is ridiculous. She looked up back in Michigan where I'm from, there aren't any hoops. And she's like, okay, just for giggles and kicks, what would happen if we moved back to Michigan? Now, of course, I laughed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Michigan as a state, but I love Michigan in July. That kind of things. She said, okay. And she sent me this thing.
You don't like the frozen tundra?
Yeah, exactly. And get this, Amy is not a snow person. Go figure. And she said, okay, how about Lawrence? I'm going Lawrence. I know Lawrence. Lawrence is somewhere.
Where the hell's that?
I look it up. It's in the southwest corner of Michigan. It's just above a little town that my pastor that I know, which is Dowagiac. And let's put it this way. You are very close to the lake off of the west side of the state. You're this one's about 30 miles north of the Indiana border. They get in lake effect snow, more snow than they get in the upper peninsula of Michigan. They average 200 inches of snow a year.
Yeah, that's kind of like Buffalo, how it gets out.
That's impressive.
Syracuse, yeah. Buffalo, anything that's on the east side of one of the Great Lakes, you're screwed. And, because the pastor Pastor Jeff that I knew would send messages or pictures where they had to dig trenches from one part of the school to the other part. I mean, like trenches. Mm-hmm. Do you like snow? Do you like being, because the house that she was actually looking at was a level, and then there was a lower level that looked into the backyard. And I said, you won't see anything beyond that lower level 9 months out of the year. Yeah. She some reason doesn't want to go there now.
Like snow are the ones that have been there for a day or two, maybe a weekend,
yes,
but haven't lived in snow for months,
right? And let alone driving, which is not, when you get more around by snowmobile, then you get more of an idea what it's like out that way. So yeah, I went no. I voted no. So we'll try something else, but. Yeah. It's pretty during the summer. It's gorgeous. There is nothing out there. When I laughed and I told her, I said, when BF Idaho goes, that is nowhere. You know what it's like out that way. There is nothing. Miles and miles of miles and miles. So anyways, that's how it is. And so winter will be coming, and my computer just died again. Thank you, Microsoft. The computer that the old computer that we used to do the broadcast on, got an update today, and literally every 20 minutes it resets itself. Thank you, Microsoft. That's why I'm happy I'm on an Apple. So yeah. That's life. Life goes on. But I digress. How you guys doing? Daz, I know with you it's melt or be melted.
Yeah, it's pretty much swimming pool time. Oh, my electricity went out for 4 hours yesterday. Yay, welcome to California.
Oh, that's right. The famous California brownouts and blackouts.
They're claiming it wasn't a brownout. They're claiming it was.
What's a brownout?
Where they basically shut off the electricity in various parts of the state because the electricity demand is exceeding the supply.
Right,
sort of a rolling power cut, planned outage rather than a.
But the issue is with the brownout. If you have electronics, any electronics like refrigerators or computers or anything like that, it's getting just enough juice that it could fry it out without actually. It's not a complete shut off of the power. It's reduced to so low that the lights won't function, but you're still getting some juice. Some electronics in that do not do well and will burn themselves out in a brownout. That's why you always want to unplug It's just about everything that's valuable to you in situations like that.
I was
put
thinking
it behind a UPS.
All right. Yep. Good old HUPS units.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking of something else that was brown and could cause problems.
Could be. So, speaking of which, of where you are, how's it going now that you're in the winter, going towards spring?
Well, it's supposed to be really, really horrible for the next couple of days. Just a storm coming through. It's looking like it's about to throw down with rain imminently, but it hasn't yet. But no, at the weekend we had the very, very rare thing of a kid-free weekend half day.
Yes, I'm into
well,
that
both
now.
boys had an overnight scout camp in a place called Greytown, which is about 2 hours from Wellington. It's where people who have more money than what I do have their little weekend house that they go to, and you can sit there and you can drink a latte and go shopping for very nice frocks and watch the world go by, that sort of place. But we thought we had to go over there anyway because we had 2 kids, we were doing transport. But instead, I persuaded my other half to go for what we call an overnight tramp. Now, tramping in New Zealand is sort of hiking, usually backcountry, not sort of nice little trails. These are sort of longer ones. And the plan is that we were going to go and hike. And there's a night cache in the Tararua Hills that sort of people tend to work for their milestone caches. Hey, I did Cedric for my 5,000th. It's called Cedric. And the plan was we'd go up and over. You had to go across a swing bridge over a gorge. So if you don't like heights, look away now. And then up and over a hill ridge. And then you get to Cone Hut, and the start of the night cache is fairly close to that.
Sure.
And the theory is you stay overnight at Cone. Unfortunately, we got down. It was getting dark when we got down to Cone, which wasn't a problem. But it was absolutely full when we got there. And these dock and huts are first come, first served.
Oh, yeah.
And it was already full of hunters and dogs. So we did the night cache, found Cedric. Cool one. I can see why people do it from Milestone. And then we had to walk another 3 kilometers. So that's just about 3 miles in the dark to Tutawai Hut that's further down the valley. Fortunately, the torch batteries held out just about. So, but that was interesting.
I bet.
You know how I totally suck at night caching anyway. But put me in the dark on a fairly rough trail with torch. I hope this is going to keep going.
What could happen?
Well, we don't have bears, so we don't have that worry. We did have I did jump about 10 foot at one point because a possum came out of the bush and ran across the path and went, and I'm like, ah! But we got down to Tutawai Hut by about 10 past. Me or it.
Either.
It ran off too fast. And we got down to Tutawai Hut, and fortunately there were still 2 spaces left in that, so we didn't have to sleep totally on the floor. We did have a mattress.
Very nice.
And then hightail it back again the same way the next day to try and get back more or less in time to pick up the boys. And the Tararuas are sort of a little bit infamous. You can have flat, in which case it's liable to be peat boggy. You can have steep, with or without added tree roots. Or you could have steep and boggy.
There you go.
Yeah, it's sort of got,
AKA
it's got everything. Yeah, and that was kind of interesting in the dark.
Wow. No, that definitely gets heart pumping.
Yeah. And on Monday, I went over up the road a bit to help the Wandering Dragons celebrate his 1,500 days caching streak in a row.
Wow.
And I've been on a couple of sort of missions with him. And I just don't know how the hell he does it. It's sort of, we're talking out on, he says he's done this, and I totally believe him, out on trails, sort of 10 miles from home before dawn to get to it, to find a cache so he can find one before he's too late for work. Wow. Plus a job, plus a family, plus sort of quite a few evening commitments.
1,500, that's a lifestyle.
I was going to make a comment that he must be retired, but obviously he's not. Like, that's insane.
Nope. Yeah, I don't know how the heck he does it, and I salute him. I managed it just over a year, and it damn nearly killed me. So, well done, Eric.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Now I popped out of my head what I did want to emphasize, because we do talk differently from Sarah and her part of the planet in New Zealand, and from, of course, the slang and lingo from the United States.
Sorry.
An overnight tramp in the United States is totally different than a walk in the woods. I just want to let you know. So look, if you have to, Google, and you'll see what
I can imagine. That's why I deliberately I said it's like hiking. It's not doing anything else.
I'm just saying. All right. We got to clarify these things for our friends in
the one that cracks us up is you've got an ice cream brand called Chili Willy.
Yes. And I'm sure that would have a whole totally different effect.
It does.
And again, Google it, folks, if you're curious. All right, so moving up. We got the podcast roundup. That's all right. Hey, we gotta clarify these things, either for our friends over on that side of the planet or for our friends on this side of the planet. Because
you're slowly getting me trained.
Yes.
You're slowly getting me trained.
That's it. We get in enough trouble with the folks over in Europe, so I'm just saying. Starting off with the podcast roundup, letting our viewers know what's going on in the geocaching podcasting community. This is what's coming up this week on Geo Gearheads is episode 286, Road Caching 12. Retired guy talks to Chris of the Northwest and Daryl W4 about his geocaching travels. And Geo Snippets Reboot Podcast, we'll find out when I figure out what we're going to talk about. Well, it's always one of those fun things where nobody knows. We didn't have a meeting, and Amy's not here right now to bounce things off of. So I'm just saying we'll figure something. Come visit. We'll have geocaching things to talk about. Please consider becoming a patron for our show. It does cost money for us to do this each and every week, and we rely completely on the contributions of you fine folks out there in the geocaching podcast universe. So if you could please stop on by to geocachingpodcast.com and go over to our PayPal or our Patreon logos and click on those, and we'll give you all the information. And if you can throw a couple bucks to us each month to help keep us going, we would greatly appreciate it. And for the people, including the new people that just started up with it recently, thank you so very much. We really do appreciate it, and it literally helps keep the lights on pretty much. So thank you for doing that. Moving on to the GCPC mailbag. If you've got things that you want to ask hosts, comments about past shows, milestones, anything that you want to talk about geocaching related, please send it to gcpcmailbag@gmail.com. And we get a lot of stuff each week, and we love hearing from you fine folks. And we got a couple of things this week about last week's show, which was fantastic. Mr. Scott Burks came on by, and we had the full crew in and just had a good time laughing about nostalgic things about the show. But we've got a couple of things. Taz, if you don't mind, if you could pick up the first one, we'll go on from there.
So I don't think, so this is from Dudley Grunt. I don't think I started listening until 2008, but I do recall listening via TalkShoe. I swear I remember when Daryl joined, but that might have been my listening to the back catalog when catching up. Congratulations on show number 500. Happy trails, Dave. Dudley Grunt.
Thanks, Dudley. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's funny because quite a few people have written back talking about, because we had some gaps in the show. I didn't know actually which episode I started. There were some other things, and folks wrote back and said, I remember, I have all these episodes. So people have episodes back to episode 1. So if we're going to have to somehow get a hold of them and somehow transfer that knowledge, because we've lost quite a few of them that I would love to have back. So we're going to have to talk with them and send them well, nowadays I can send them a thumb drive with enough on there to pull them. But we got to get the original shows back so that we have them all in the collection. I've got the ones since I've taken over the show a few years ago, but we need all the ones before that. So we'll work something out. If you do have those, let us know, and we'll work something out. Sarah, you want to get the next one, or you want me to do it?
Which one? The Geek Boy one?
Yep.
Hi, guys and gals. This is Geek Boy from Illinois. I've been geocaching since July 3rd, 2006. While listening to show number 500, I heard you ask how long we'd been listening. I started listening to X-Punk X back around show 5 to 10. I'd call into TalkShoe almost every week to participate, and when I was near a computer, I would be in the chat room. Way back at some point in the past, before Montu Ryder joined the team, I was a silent member of the crew. I would monitor the calls and add questions and comments to the show notes so that Andy and Daryl didn't have to watch both all the time. I kept up doing that all the way up until I moved away from TalkShoe. At several points, it was debated that if I should become an active host, but initially Andy and Daryl were both in EST and I was in CST, so it wasn't a great fit. Then, after Scott Burks came along, he's just a stone's throw away from me, so I left the opportunities to geocachers from different areas to get a better distribution. I'll have to dig through my old iTunes library to see how far back I still have episodes saved, as for a long time I wasn't ever deleting them. Keep up the good work and happy caching.
Yeah, absolutely. Geek Boy, we're definitely going to have in the reunion. And we had so much that we tried. We had so many people in TalkShoe because all we had, it was like listening to a radio show. And we had this huge chat room. And I've never seen anything in comparison to use that you could use publicly, like on a website. And so when it went through, we would have tons of people in there. This was back in a time where people actually almost listened to that more than they did. Well, not more than they did the podcast itself, but to do it live. And it just, the chat room just went, and we couldn't keep up. And so it was so lucky for us to have Geek Boy in there because he literally did. He caught the questions and stuff. He would put it in our show notes so that we would see stuff as they were coming in. And it just made life a whole lot easier to have somebody in to do that. That's why I have Amy in GeoSnippets, because that's what she does. So
yeah, I don't know how you can keep it interacting. I can only focus on one thing at once.
It's nuts. And even with Amy, half the time you see her at a 45-degree angle, and she's constantly going through. So you do need a full-time person doing that position. But
yeah, I have a hard time checking the live chat room and stuff while looking at the show notes and talking and paying attention to the show.
Exactly.
You know, it's I think Scott does a better job at that.
It's a lot of work. It really is. And it depends on how many people, because the chat rooms will get into some other subject that we're not even talking about. They'll get on some thing and off it goes that way. Amy will keep right up with it and just go with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool. So thank you, Geek Boy from Illinois, and very cool from hearing from you. And yes, like I said, anybody gets the old episodes, I want them. So we'll go from there. All right, not too much on the news side of things. Let's see, a couple of trackable promotions limited to US only. I'm assuming that's Sarah saying that.
It is. I've just seen on a couple of social media things that, hey, I've just found this really cool trackable, and where can I go to Mountain Equipment and get them? Yeah. And fine, US only, I suppose. I know. And there was another winner. Get a trackable and win a cruise to Norway or something weird one. But again, it's limited to only to legal residents of the sort of mainland US of A. And
it's very hard for us.
Hello, there's the rest of the world.
A lot of them, because I mean, we've had a bunch of them through geocaching.com that have done trackables. And it's hard for us to sit there and say, hey, we're all geeked and really excited, but sorry, world, only us. And it's like,
well, don't all trackables end up in the black hole in Germany anyway?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But for promotional purposes, they got all those. Hey, just in Brexit alone, you're going to know what it's going to be like. I'm just saying.
Don't get me started.
Keep in mind.
I don't understand what's happening in UK politics either.
Yeah, I just saw another thing.
I've been out of it far too long.
Yeah, I just saw another thing from John Oliver going on, and just that's the only way I understand things is by the Comedy Channel type things that are out there.
Yeah,
that's how I understand politics. Let's see. Moving on, we've got episode 501, and we're calling it "Issues with Geocaching Reviewers and More." So what I want to say right off the bat, because once you say the geocaching reviewer, several emotions usually get stirred. This is not going to be a bash. I'm just telling you right now, it's not going to be a rant per se. The reason, and we'll go into what it is in a little bit, why this came up, but I just want to go through, they are the unsung heroes as far as I am concerned when it comes to geocaching. We can't place a geocache without their help and without their approval. And some of the conflicts that come are because we can't place a geocache without their help and without their approval. So it's a conflict of interest in many ways, shapes, or forms. And
they're almost the unpaid referees.
Right, exactly. Unpaid referees.
And a lot of us want the rules bent in our favor.
Yes, because we like things our way.
And admittedly, I've been there, and I've been not happy with the reviewer because I felt things were not going my way when I thought they should have, according to the way I interpreted the rules.
Exactly. And that's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight. But it's definitely something to go on, and definitely an issue, and people have their ways and thoughts about it depending on their experiences. It really is a thankless job that takes a large chunk of time and resources to accomplish. You're constantly overseeing, judging, and communicating with geocachers about their hides, and that is, it's just a thankless thing in itself. So what I thought I would do is kind of enlighten you. If you want to do things better, become a reviewer. So I thought we would go over, and we actually have the link in our show notes tonight, but I thought, why not just go right out of the rule book and say becoming a community volunteer reviewer and what it takes to do it. So how do I become a community volunteer reviewer? New reviewers are generally identified in collaboration with the local and global reviewing teams based on the need in the area and each candidate's skills and experience. All right, that sounds like a decent explanation of what goes on. People don't realize there are reviewers, I know in this area, and I'm sure in other parts of the country and the world as well, there's one reviewer for the whole state. So, I mean, it's not like they've got 50 of them in each area and all collaborate what goes on. They have one or two if you're lucky.
Texas used to have only a single reviewer for the entire state of Texas.
And that's a big state.
That's a big state, yeah.
That's as far as I know.
Population-wise, that's like having a reviewer for all of Canada.
Yeah, exactly. And that's enough troubles in of itself. I'm just saying. So
I think we've only got one that covers all of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'm pretty sure it's a he, goes away or on leave, and the previous reviewer, who's now in Aussie, just every so often Growly Bear steps back in. Right. But it's not. And I'll say straight off, I haven't hidden a lot of caches. That's my fault, not anybody else's. But the service I've had from both Growly Bear and the curator, which are the two reviewers I've dealt with, have been brilliant.
Yeah, that's
really fast. The only issue I had back with one of them is they wanted a name of cache brackets, area brackets, so that if people are searching, they knew whether it was Wellington or Wairarapa or totally and utterly middle of nowhere.
So like a location identification in the name.
Just a little bit of it, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So doesn't it have coordinates associated with it?
Yeah, it kind of tells where it is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I would have a
logic, and I don't think logic is always in the same thing with anything in life.
Yes.
I mean, it's not anything I got a problem with. It's just I'd never thought of that. Okay.
Yeah, but as a search criteria, I can see them saying something like that. We just don't get that here in the States, I don't think is right.
Like, say, if you were searching and say wanted, I'll pick Raleigh because that's one of the places you are.
Sure.
Yeah. So do you want Raleigh just around the area, or do you? But yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't think it's as far as I know, it's not a hard and fast rule, but
It's definitely not a hard and fast rule because
if you think about it,
I've almost never seen people put that sort of information in the title.
And I think that's part of the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight as well, is how different reviewers have certain interpretations that they put into things and how that can be different regionally. Because in my opinion, I kind of go with what Chad said. Don't they have coordinates for it? And also, if you're searching, you have a diameter of miles of an area that you're looking for when you're looking. So you already know you're in that area. I can see for searching how that might be something that's helpful with that. But on the other hand, I can see other people going, well, wait a minute. So again, this is what brings it interesting. Yeah. But no, it's a great point.
Yeah. Both of them have been absolutely brilliant and responded to questions even from a relative newbie hider. So, well, thank you, both of you.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. So yeah, it's interesting how different reviewers work, and I think that's some of the stuff that that goes on with this. And so some of the other things that they have in here, volunteers, let's see, new reviewers are generally identified. Okay, we did that. Volunteers obey the frog.skills and experiences. Volunteer, I pulled this off. Frog.skills. They had an experience which includes strong knowledge of geocaching listing requirement guidelines. Yeah, I would think that would be a pretty big thing to know. So this is your job description, by the way, for a reviewer. Activity in the geocaching community as a geocacher, geocache owner, and event organizer. So I definitely see why they would want to have that. Consistency in geocache ownership, such as well-maintained geocaches that adhere to the guidelines. Positive reputation within the local geocaching community. Involvement with local geocaching organizations. Ability to communicate effectively online and in English. That's interesting.
Well, that rules me out.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I know slang really well, but I don't know about proper English. The best thing you can do if you like to become a geocache reviewer is to work on each of the qualifications described above. Then I just lost my thing here. Let's see. Then when you least expect it, you might be asked. So that sounds pretty exclusive to me. Thank you for your interest in serving the caching community. And again, I'll have a link in the show notes with this and everything that we just went over. So yeah, it's one of those things. Even if you want to be a reviewer, you've got to go through a review process, and then you might be asked. I know in North Carolina, it's changed hands a couple of times. Because obviously, you do it for 5-6 years or what have you. That's that's just as much of a job as anything else.
Yeah, you get burnout. I know one of the former reviewers up here. He retired about a year ago. Yeah, I didn't know him at the time. I didn't know he was a reviewer at the time. Found out afterwards. But yeah, he says it's pretty much a thankless job, and it grinds on you after a while. So I mean, it's something that I personally would not choose to put myself through.
Think of yourself working in a retail store at the complaint department. That's pretty much what it is.
Any money.
Without making any money. You better love what you're doing, because there's a reference that's said in the retail world, and many people will understand what I'm talking about exactly. When it comes with talking with customers, there are filters that you go through. And to me, it's almost like Star Trek shields on a ship. They keep getting blasted by the enemy, and the shields go down and down and down. That's what the filters are working with customers. And it's got to be the same way for reviewers, where after a while, those filters, aka shields, are not there anymore. And I can see where if somebody goes and maybe not as politically correct as they want, I can see why that would happen.
Yeah.
So, and reviewers, I've talked to many reviewers. Matter of fact, it was funny because when I first started geocaching, I had no idea who the reviewers were, because it's kind of secret. They don't really broadcast a whole lot of who they are for obvious reasons. And to find out that they're there, and it's like, oh, you're the reviewer. They go, yeah. But the
Yeah.
first thing that
I
they'll
know.
say is they're not infallible. They're not perfect. They do the best they can with the knowledge that they have, and away they go. And let's face it, when you're talking about humans, consistency is not a word that you're going to hear right away with humans.
And I think part of the thing is people almost assume that a reviewer knows intimately their area and knows why that place is perfect because they'll have physically checked it out, and they haven't.
Yeah, and let's use railroad tracks for example. Technically, you cannot, according to the guidelines, have a geocache any closer to 150 feet from railroad tracks because they are private property. I know reviewers that will sit there and go on a map and look to see, because they may know the area a little better than others, to see if you're within the range. And if you're closer than you should be, they will tell you.
Yeah.
So,
And I had, I've heard stories about people, there's some abandoned railroad tracks that are out here that are still on the maps. And some reviewers don't understand it, while other reviewers do understand it.
Yep.
And some won't if it's on the map, they won't allow you. While you can have a literal train of caches along the tracks, and you're just adding one more to that locomotive.
Well, there are types, just to give you an example that we have through here. There are what they call closed railroad tracks, which means it's privately owned by a company. And even though you may not have seen a train in the past 10 years on that thing, that company owns a train that could potentially go through. So, I mean, there's all these variables that reviewers have to put up with. People are like, I've never seen a train.
But if they applied that rule in Wellington, I can think of about 20 or 30 caches that would automatically have to be archived because they're well within 150 meters of a track.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was one geocache that I placed where the railroad stoppers that come down are there. The actual track lights are there. You could see the track that goes through the road, but on both sides there's no tracks because they've been taken out years ago, and still have say, well, there's a train there. I said, well, if this train can fly like in Back to the Future, you're all set, but there's no train here. Sorry. So yeah, you get all sorts of stuff, and they don't know everything. They can only go by the information that they can have available. So that's where the tolerance starts coming in. I think that's the word that we're going to use all night
Once
today.
that decision is made, they're usually not going to back off of that decision.
Right. Yeah, and that's some of the stuff there goes. So let's we just touched on this, but let's start getting into some of the stuff. Issues Geocacher has with reviewers. Now, again, we're not ranting. We're just saying this is stuff that we've heard over time with that. And it's kind of broken down in generalizations, and we're just kind of going to add to this. I, the geocacher, did not get what I want with my new attempt to hide a geocache, which is instant conflict. I want to put it here. This is the perfect spot. This is exactly what I need to do. What do you mean I can't put it there? We've all hit that. I mean, some of the stuff, and Chad can go into, because he's had this a lot, multi-caches. It's one of those things where we cannot see where different stages or waypoints are. And I still don't understand. Well, I do understand, because it's like a puzzle. You don't want to tell what's going on. So there's no physical way of showing where multi-stages are for a multi-cache. But if you try placing a geocache that's within the same guidelines of 600 feet from one of those waypoints, you can't do it.
Yep.
And that will drive people insane.
And puzzles. And it's like, okay, which puzzle is it? So I can go solve the friggin' puzzle.
Yes.
And figure out where it's at.
Yes, you almost have to do that. You almost have to figure out all the puzzle and multi-caches in the area that you want to play so that you can pinpoint where the waypoints are.
Well, I've not had this problem with, but I've heard of other people who tried to place a cache and got told, no, sorry, it's too close to the final of a puzzle. But what some of the reviewers have done apparently in the past has said, well, if you want to shift that north, or whatever, you won't have so much. The problem will go away.
Right, but a lot of geocachers don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Just give a little bit of guidance. Switch it a bit, put it a bit further north, and you're out of range of that final.
One of the funny ones was it wasn't a reviewer that wouldn't allow me to place a cache, but it was a reviewer that wouldn't allow another person to place a cache because it was too close to my final, to my multi, and the guys get dialing me up and saying, "Hey, I need you to move your multi so that I can place my really, really cool cache." It's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is. And sometimes reviewers can be nice, like Sarah said. Hey, if you find another area to put your geocache that may be another 150 feet north of where you're at, you're okay. At least they're giving you enough of a point of reference. I've had other geocache reviewers, they will not tell you. It's like, sorry, you're too close. Which way?
Yeah.
And just, so it's that's part of it. And that's part of the conflict that goes on with it. So yeah, there's so many other conflicts that you can have with a reviewer just because it's not going the way you want. Now, when I first started geocaching, the reviewer was exceptionally kind, knew I was a newbie because I wanted to do a multi-cache. Well, there was this beautiful little park. It was probably, I don't know, a couple 100 feet in any given direction square, really pretty, had a kind of a pond in the center, and there was these great clumps of trees that are on the different orders of it. And I thought, what a great way to do a multi-cache. Well, you can't do physical containers unless it's within the 600-foot thing. And he's like, this is why you can't do this. I didn't understand from my lack of knowledge of how a multi-cache actually worked. I just thought you can put them in different spots and have people go. No, there's other rules that are involved with that. So reviewers are very much the teachers out there of the guidelines, so that for people that don't understand what it is, they've got to sit there and say, this is why this doesn't work. But you get people out there that they've got that absolute perfect spot for that perfect geocache, and this is what I want to have it. Sorry, you can't do it. And that conflict hits.
And I've had that. I've seen on multiple occasions where it's like, oh man, I would love to be able to do this. And I pull up the app and it's like, crap, there's a cache within 528 feet.
Yep, exactly.
And it's like, but it's like, you want to ask the person, hey, can you archive that cache because it's really a piece of garbage cache? But you can't really do that.
No, it's you're treading on other people's pools.
Depends if they're still active.
Yeah,
I guess.
Another great incident and Sarah actually brought this up earlier. Now's a good time to talk about. But geocacher XYZ was able to hide their geocache that way. Why can't I? So differences in reviewer thinking, placements, interpretation of the guidelines, etc. happens all the time.
And it could also be a situation where the rules were not there when they originally placed it, and new rules have superseded it. And so, but they're not going to archive all the caches that broke the rules that were existing.
Exactly. And that does happen. It doesn't happen often, but you never realize how much the overall impact, the ripples that happen if you change the guidelines with grandfathering other geocaches that already exist. So yeah, it happens all the time. The extreme stuff is like what Sarah has in that particular case, where, okay, you're going to change your wording of your the title of your geocache based on location. That one I can see arguably because it's not in the guidelines. Nobody says you have to do that, but a reviewer is interpreting it that way and going with it. If people don't like it, I can see where that would cause a conflict.
I mean, I can see also it'd be quite useful if people, because I know there are challenges around that, find X% of, or all the caches placed by a cacher who's placed more than X than this number of caches.
Right.
Yeah. And I've come across one like that. And if somebody, a good example we've got is a guy called Leprechaun. He's a great guy. And he's placed a load of caches. Most are in New Zealand, but there's just at least one of them is in Ireland.
Oh my!
And flying halfway around the world to pick up that final one on the list might just annoy people.
Putting a cache in Ireland?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm told he's fueled by Guinness.
Yeah. Now the
He's
only
welcome
thing
to it.
Yeah, the only thing that I do see in a lot of cases in the States is that if you've got a series of geocaches, they usually number them and sit there and say series name and then the number so that people can do a search on that. So I can see how, but it's not in the guidelines. It doesn't say you have to do it, but I just see people for search purposes until
Sort of
they
like,
can actually get a good one.
Like the UK Church Micros or Sidetracks or a few of the other series they've got.
Right.
Tend not to have those so much here. People will place power trails and leave it at that.
Yep. Yep. The other one is God mode. Some reviewers tend to have this, the all-powerful, all-seeing, because I said so kind of thinking behind things. Have seen it. Not necessarily with mine, but in discussions with other reviewers that I've kind of picked up on that. Reviewers that dictate law because they can is the feeling that I think a lot of geocachers feel, that they're in this supreme mode and what says goes. Retort with facts. And this is, I can't stress this more than this. If you have a conflict with a reviewer, going to them and saying, well, this is what I feel and this is how it should be, will not get you as far as here is what it says in the guidelines and going through the definition of fact. If you go and retort with facts, you will get so much more than you would if you went off flaming because you're ticked off. You're not going to get anywhere.
Now, it doesn't guarantee you that you'll get it published, but you can actually get a dialect going.
I talked to a geocacher, a prominent geocacher, that went through, and this man knows his stuff. I mean, he knows the guidelines, backwards, forwards, in and out, interpretation, what have you. Actually got as far as going to geocaching.com, which you can do, about a certain situation, and said, here are the facts. Printed out what they were, described them like you would as a lawyer, showed them exactly what this was, so the interpretation was done exactly. And geocaching.com kind of went, wow, that's really true. All right. And backed off on their thing. It does happen. Not always, but it does happen. But if you use facts instead of just blurting out, you're going to get a lot farther. And that's actually kind of what one of the things that I wanted to get into, and we'll hit this next part here in a second. But the reason why this fits so nicely here, I read in the internet, in the social media earlier this week, about a geocacher who is very verbose in their opinion, and people know this. And this person obviously had some kind of conflict, went as far as stating his opinion to geocaching.com. And quite frankly, got banned. And it, you get into these situations where, oh my God, I'm the victim, I got banned. And the question that I relate to our audience and to the host is there a line of what let's call professional courtesy that can be crossed where consequences are going to happen? And it kind of goes back to, like I said, give the facts, not the flaming. And obviously this is what ended up going on here, is the very intelligent flaming that went. And even if you are doing it in a verbose way, it comes across incorrectly and you get kicked.
Right.
I don't look at people that do that as victims. You always get the rah-rah people, oh, well, we're behind you, blah, blah, blah. There's a right way and a wrong way when you are conversing with another human being in any circumstance. I'm not going to go to a cop that just pulled up behind me and rant at his face because he's doing his job, because there may be consequences of that action depending on how bad I rant.
Yeah.
So what are your folks on feelings about stuff like that? Is there, there's a way with tact, I guess is the best way to do this, of getting your point across as best you can without crossing that line.
Right. And I see it not all the time, but frequently enough on various forums and social media and other things where people are just, they're being complete jerks about things in the approach that they're taking. They might be correct, but the approach that they're taking is done in a manner which is intentionally irritating the moderators or whatever you have, and done in a way that basically is trying to get everyone to band behind them as the bully.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, those people deserve to be banned. I don't feel sorry for them.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen every day. I mean, this isn't something that goes on a great thing, but you do get the people that do the extreme.
And you do get sometimes what I can only really describe as personality conflicts. Now, there aren't many people, but there's just one or two people I know, not through geocaching, through other activities, that as soon as I see anything from them, or as soon as I say so-and-so said, the hairs on the back of my neck just start to rise, and I'm sort of almost, because of past history, I'm on edge, and oh God, not them again. What are they finding now?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that reviewers have that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to back off and say, look, we're never going to be on each other's Christmas cards lists. But what do we need to nut out so we can actually work on this together?
Yeah.
Because if a reviewer throws his toys out the pram, we haven't got a game.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you just got to accept the consequences or accept the final answer and go with it. You may not like it, but you know what? This isn't life-changing. This isn't, life or death kind of a thing. You can move your little container and put it someplace else and know that there's a reason given. I've never heard anybody where the reviewer just says, "cuz." Everything that I've heard with a complaint, it's because they said that this happened. Now it's gone down to proving whether the reviewer actually says this or what you're saying is the truehood of the situation. But that, that's where I can see things getting a little more muddled or heated over situations. But this is what it is. No, this is what it says. You can get into that, but for the most part with it, move it to a different spot. Right. Is the end result. Find someplace else. You got a whole planet out there. Go for it. And like I said, we don't always agree. We don't always go, but ultimately the reviewer, what's going on is who's going to have the say with it. If you're in a situation that you understand, you really feel that your part is in the right, call into geocaching.com and say, look, you guys are the Supreme Court. This is the situation. This is what the reviewer said. Who's right? And they will eventually come back. Again, like Chad said, there is no guarantee that because you're fighting for this, you're going to get a happy result. But at least you get there is a higher court that can sit there and say, this is what's going on. So, now some of the stuff that I just think from the point of view of the reviewer being in their shoes, and I've never been there, I can't say for a fact. The first thing I've read in many articles about reviewers that they say they're not infallible. They do make mistakes. All right. Things happen. You go with it. You figure it out. You come to a resolution and go with it. So they're not perfect robots that absolutely know everything and go with that. A lot of the rules are very interpretive when it comes to how things are going. So constant conflict with geocachers as to why that particular geocache can't be authorized is part of their stay. They get that all the time. How reviewers must feel about geocachers who can't take no for an answer. And I think we've kind of hit that a lot. And are in search of reviewers, automobiles so that they can't break their head. Reviewers kind of don't announce that they're reviewers. And I kind of put the perspective of Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. If you've ever seen that movie, he's a bouncer at a bar that buys this beat up car that parks in the parking lot of the bar, and if he gets somebody ticked off, they slice their tires, they break his windows. I think that's how reviewers must feel in certain situations, because they know they're not exactly loved all the time by everybody. So it's got to be rough to be a reviewer going around it. Reviewers looking over their shoulders at events, for geocachers who know that they're reviewers. And the first thing that I thought in my mind is, somebody that they've got an agenda is heading over to where you are, and just having that thought of, here we go.
Where's the exit, so I can I can dash out if I have to.
Exactly. And they got to feel that. So I really do have empathy for reviewers. It really truly is a thankless job, and they've put up with more conflict than I would ever do for not being paid. Let's put it that way. There are a couple quick tips that we're going to go over here for if you want to cut down the amount of conflict that may or may not happen with the reviewer. Here's a couple of points that you might want to consider before you actually hide your geocache. One, become familiar and know and understand the geocaching guidelines before attempting to place a geocache. Do your research. If you, we always talk before about how many fines should you have for a geocacher before you actually hide one. The reason why I'm such a huge advocate for a larger number of fines is because you get the point of reference of how to hide a geocache correctly so that you don't. And going through and understanding all the rules. Now, there are some people that figure it out and know the rules relatively quickly. Great for you, and go for it. For the majority of geocachers, they really need to play the game for a while so that they get a point of view of all the different types of hidings of geocaches instead of just hiding one.
You get an idea of what are the really bad hides that don't last.
Yeah.
Other people have made those mistakes. You really, really don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just to give you a real quick thing that happened literally this weekend with wife Amy, one of her friends at work said to her, because she knew that she was into geocaching, she says, I want to hide a geocache. And she said, okay, fine. What do you want to do? And basically her concept, she didn't know what geocaching was. She wanted to promote her business. So she wanted to paint on a rock the business information and name and hide it in a park. And Amy kind of obviously said, no, that's not a geocache. And had to explain but sometimes the mindsets of some people are, they just don't get it and try to interpret their own way without even knowing what the game actually is. And then going that way. So that can happen, and reviewers have to put up with that so much. So know and understand the geocaching guidelines before they attempt to place. And I, again, can't emphasize enough, because I've seen a lot of this on the social interweaves, get written permission of the landowner before attempting to place the geocache. I've seen a lot of stuff recently where people go, I want to hide this geocache behind this business over here. Is that okay? And wonder why they're not getting allowed to hide it. If you go and get the landowner, not the manager or the clerk of the shop that happens to be nearby, but the landowner of where the businesses are, get written permission will cut away 99.9% of any problems that you have, because you have a written email or a piece of paper that says you're allowed to put this geocache here with our permission. So, and
it might stop the cops getting called out for the suspicious package that they've just discovered.
Yes. Exactly. And finally, and this is a toughie for the folks because you want it your way, do not attempt to bend the rules when placing a geocache. And this is what happens. I didn't tell the reviewer where this particular, dangerous pit of death is or anything like that. But you're relying on the reviewer to just say, okay, no problem, go ahead and improve it. If it does get published, and other geocachers know the guidelines and see the infraction, they will let you know, and then they will let the reviewer know of what the issue is. You're not going to get away with hiding something if it's past the guidelines.
Yeah, I FTF'd one that was quite literally hidden up under an interstate railing in Texas.
Yeah,
and immediately put in first to find, but this is hidden in an illegal spot, and can be misinterpreted as a potential bomb if people.
Oh, absolutely.
If the police see you up there, they're going to stop you. They're going to question you, and it wound up being archived within a few days after that.
Yeah, I think the most common one that I've seen that I will be the first person to do is the one where the geocache is hidden behind the no trespassing sign. There is no trespassing. I've had many of them that somebody new comes in, hides a geocache, and there are signs everywhere saying no trespassing. And in the South, no trespassing means if I see you, I will shoot you. Is very, very, very dangerous. So you got to follow the rules. And that's how sometimes people are like, well, it's only 10, 15 feet in. Guess what? It's no trespassing. So, So those are the main things for tonight that'll help you get your hide in. So just basically know what you're doing. Make sure that everything's placed where it's supposed to be, and you're going to 99% of the time you're going to be fine. It's that one where you just may not know some factor that's going to keep you from getting a geocache placed, and go with that. But for the most part, geocachers are very happy and satisfied with their viewers and have good things to say. All right. Yep. Good stuff. So like I said, no rant against reviewers. We love you. And thank you for doing what you do. Because like Sarah said earlier in the show, we couldn't have a game without you. So thank you for everything that you do. All right, guys. Want to thank Chad and Sarah for everything that they do as well. And we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for subscribing to the Geocaching Podcast. And all right, I think it's time to wrap this puppy up. All right, let's do this. Please be sure to join us each and every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time for another episode of the Geocaching Podcast, right here on the Geocaching Podcast website at www.geocachingpodcast.com/live. The video version of our show is available on YouTube. The audio version is available on our home website, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and many of your favorite podcatchers. We love hearing from our viewers and listeners, so please visit us through our social media sites or contact us via our voicemail line at 630-31-VOICE. The Geocaching Podcast is a Headhardhat production and is produced by Andy Smith, Scott Burks, Chad Courtney, and Sarah T.S. This show is copyright 2017 by Andrew T. Smith. All rights reserved. And clear. All right, good show, folks. Thank you so much for stopping on by. We greatly do appreciate it. And we will see you fine folks next week if the planet doesn't melt on Geocaching Podcast. Have a good one. Have a safe one. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.